We are at the U-37, as you mentioned, and one of the cleanest, shiniest boats here for one reason. This man to my right, Claude Comeau, they call him Mr. Clean. He's been helping out John Theoret's boat for the last 24 years. Let's take a look at what he can do.
Everything has to be clean. Rock and roll. So I've been working on John's team since the first time he put his seat on, his back seat on a seat. Special stuff here that I need. Yeah.
Mr. Clean?
Yeah. I'm really happy that this team asked me to join them and help them to keep that thing very clean. Everything has to be clean.
Day, I'm feeling a little dirty too, Claude. Can you help me out? Oh, thank you, thank you. Like you said, everything's got to be clean.
Based on race wins alone, Dave Vilwalk is arguably the best driver on the circuit with 54 career victories. He's won all 3 races this year and is the current Gold Cup champion. He has won the ABPA Gold Cup 6 times and has been National High Point Champion 8 times.
One of the most important pieces on the boat is the propeller. Now we're joined by Adam Gregory of USA Racing, the U-10. Adam, what are we doing now once the boat gets out of the water?
First step is we uncouple it from the boat and go ahead and put it here on the trailer. And then we're going to torque the nut back down on the propeller, and then we're going to go up into the blackout tent and Zygolo the propeller, check it for cracks.
All right, let's get it done. Is that hard to do?
Not really.
Yeah? Okay.
Not too bad, not as hard as it looks.
All right, so now you're able to just take it off?
Right on the trailer, and we go up to the front of the boat here.
And what's this thing worth right here?
About $15,000 just the propeller, another about $4,000 for the shaft.
All right, so you've got sure hands right now, don't you?
I do.
Okay. All right, I don't want to make you nervous or anything. And where are we going in right now? Hold on one second.
This is the blackout tent where I can go in here, I Zygolo the propellers with the dye chemicals, then we'll close this up, and I look at it with a black light, check it for cracks.
You Zygolo the propeller?
Zygolo, it's a Magnaflux process. It's a green dye penetrant that gets into the propeller, and I put that under a black light, and if there's any cracks, I should be able to see that through the black light itself.
All right, let's see what happens.
All right, it's a actual penetrant here. You'll see the green.
How'd it look in there?
Everything checked out good.
Okay.
So time to put it back on the boat and go ahead and run.
Every piece of equipment known to man, add a black light to that list. Guys, back to you.
All right, and the vintage hydros are on the water right now. We're going to send it to Steve and Mark. And Steve, we got an email from your son Craig. He says, "Hi, Dad, great show."
Yeah, he never calls me at home, but he'll send me an email when I'm in the Tri-Cities. That's Craig probably about to go to work back there in Seattle. Anyway, 4 boats just came by us, and a beautiful shot you saw as we had all 4 of them side by side, Mark Allen. Pretty hard to get 4 vintage boats up and running in one picture anytime, anywhere.
They had that trouble in the 1950s and 60s,
Exactly.
But we've got a good group going here, and we're looking at the Oboy Oberto just to the right-hand end of your screen. In the middle, there's the Oboy Oberto, and trailing him, you'll see him come into the shot in just a second, is Dixon Smith in the Miss Bardol, and then right behind him is the 1960 Miss Burien, driven by Peter Orton.
And Peter is moving up now on the inside. These guys have a little discussion about how they want this show to go. The problem has been they haven't been able to keep all 4 boats running long enough to do for us what they're doing right here, which is putting on a great show as they bring them all through the west turn. That's Orton on the inside in the Burien, then the Bardol. Miss Thriftway has had trouble running here this week, the brand new boat, but it's doing fine right now. And then way on the outside, the Oboy Oberto. Here they come again, down to start finish, just the way it might have looked in the early 60s.
Or just let you listen to the sound of thunder on the Columbia River.
Looks
Looks like it was the Oberto's turn to take the lead. Great shot here. This is so reminiscent of the coverage we had in Seattle back in the early days of those conventional hydroplanes, rooster tails flying, coming into the first turn. We have a kind of a special treat for you because, and we won't claim this is live, but we have some footage of Peter Orton, the driver of the Miss Beery. And look at this. Now, if you think he's getting a smooth ride, just watch a minute. He does appear to have it pretty well under control, though, and not working too hard at this point, Mark.
He's sitting way up top. You've seen the shots of the drivers that we saw a little while ago with David Bryant in the U-10 unlimited hydroplane in the capsule, in the cockpit. Now he's looking over his shoulder to see now where is everybody. He's still cranked that steering wheel over as he goes through the turn.
And you can see that it takes some strength to do that. This is not an easy thing, turning one of these boats. I asked David Williams, who, as you mentioned, has hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of laps in these vintage boats, now driving a turbine boat. I said, what's your first reaction to the difference? And he said the biggest difference is the turbine boats, you can't see where you're going. If you're used to these boats where you're sitting up high with a nice vantage point and able to see everything around you, get in a turbine boat, it's very claustrophobic. The lid comes down, the windshield is small, and the visibility limited by comparison.
I think it would be like the difference between sitting in a Corvette and sitting in an SUV to drive. You're way up high and you can see a lot. Coming around the west turn, we've got, they're going to hold their lanes. This is kind of the plan. Peter Orton very tight around the corner on the outside. We're looking at the Oh Boy Oberto, the 1975 configuration of the Oh Boy Oberto, as a matter of fact.
Look at this. We'll let you listen again. This is the sound of the hydros back in the day. The difference, Mark, is they're running very smoothly now at this speed on this water. Back in the day that I mentioned, it was always roar because of the race water being so rough and the boat's trying to catch the guy in front of them. Didn't sound quite this smooth, but you still got to love that roar.
Yep, and they slide these boats around the corner. They don't have skid fins, and they have to slide the boats around. That's why they lose so much speed in the corners. When the skid fin came into common use back in the mid-70s, all of a sudden the speeds picked up about 20 miles an hour. But we've still got the group, 4 boats, and there's Peter Orton again on your screen in the 1960 version of the Miss Beery, and that is a boat that is original construction. It was restored by the Hydroplane and Race Boat Museum, and on the outside another boat. Dixon Smith and his brother took that old Miss Bardall from 1962. It was in very bad disrepair. It had been sitting out in the elements for a number of years and have refurbished it as well. The other boats that we're looking, if we go back a little bit to the Miss Thriftway, which is running third right now, that is a brand new boat. It's a recreation. It's not a restoration. And the folks from Vashon Unlimited's put that boat together from the original plans. Really just got wet a few weeks ago out on Lake Washington, and this is about the second time that that boat has had a chance to get out and do some real running.
And the boat we're watching as the Oh Boy Oberto is actually playing the part as it is done so often. It was originally built in 1960 as Miss Lumberville, spent a number of years as the Savers Mist. We mentioned earlier, it's the boat that played the part of the Miss Madison in the movie Madison. That's why the deck line is so familiar. Here's a checkered flag, and the winner is going to be Dixon Smith in the Miss Bardall. Great job, guys.
Not sure if we gave Dane Sorensen credit. He's the one who's driving the Oh Boy Oberto, and Larry Fuller, part of the group that restored or actually rebuilt, built the brand new Miss Thriftway, the 1955. That's the original Miss Thriftway version in the dark mahogany, cream, and orange colors.
Just about as good a vintage hydroplane show as we've seen, Mark. It's hard to get these boats all together, get them all up and running, and this was what these people wanted to do, was give us several laps pretty much side by side. Yesterday just didn't happen for them. Today, pretty much the way they had it scripted, went very well, got some great shots, and I know some photographers I could name who just had a field day.
Well, that was a great show. We really appreciate the Hydroplane and Raceboat Museum bringing all these boats over. They had one other in the pits, the 1958 Hawaii Kai. They had to do a little cannibalization on that one because they blew the supercharger on the carburetor actually on the Miss Thriftway on Friday, and so they had to take that one off the Hawaii Kai, so it wasn't able to run. But we thank the folks from the Hydroplane and Raceboat Museum. A labor of love for every one of these guys, because they work their hearts out getting these boats ready to run.
And these are guys living a dream because they were not race drivers. Dixon Smith mentioned that he was a crewman on this Bardall way back when. He has worked on many boats since then, including the Pay and Pack team, one of those very, very bright individuals Bill's a techie, if you will, who has applied a lot of his computer skills to hydroplane racing, responsible for a lot of the technology we have now. But these are guys who really are like the rest of us, huge fans of that era, and getting a chance to drive these boats because of their involvement with the Hydroplane and Raceboat Museum. None of them had competitive competition experience as a driver, so I got a chance to ride in one once with Scott Pierce, a former driver who many of you will know the name at least. We took the Hawaii Kai out on Lake Chelan, and it was certainly one of the thrills of my life. This was just about 3-4 years ago. Have a great picture now on the wall of the office of Scott and I coming down the lake. He says it was about 140 miles per hour. That was fast enough for me, but it gave me some idea of what it was like back there when I was a kid watching these boats run. And it's a thrill to see scenes from your childhood replayed like this.
That's fun. There's Larry Fuller in the original Miss Thriftway. They actually got the plans for this boat. The plans that the original Miss Thriftway was built from, the identical plans and full-scale templates from Ron Jones Sr., whose dad, Ted Jones, designed the original Miss Thriftway, and Ron still had all of those plans, and it took them 4 years to get everything together. They started with the motor. Build
around it.
Build around the motor.
Yeah.
Well, they got the motor to the point where they thought, we better build a boat.
I know one of the partners in the building was a gentleman whose store they went in to get some lumber. And he said, "You're building what?" And he ended up making a huge contribution and being a part of the project. People who have looked at this boat that were familiar with the original Miss Thriftway say if there's any difference, it's probably the fact that the original was never quite this nice. The original was a race boat. This is a showpiece. They did a spectacular job of putting it together. It's Chris Craft quality. And Larry tells me it handles beautifully. He's driven a lot of the vintage boats, and he said this one handles, turns, accelerates, probably nicer than any of the actual old boats that he's driven.
There's a great photo on the KNDU Hydro Insider website earlier this week. The brand new Oh Boy Oberto and the Miss Thriftway on their trailers on tilt end to end, so we could see the tops of both of those boats and to take a look at the difference in the size and the construction and how wide the transom is now on the modern hydroplanes and how narrow it is on the older hydroplanes. I'm sure it's still on the website for those of you who want to go check that out.
You know, while you're speaking of the website, and if we have 15 seconds, Mark and I came over here last year to work with a brand new crew from KNDU, augmented by some folks from Spokane and Yakima, of course, part of the company. Paul Doogie, the general manager, calling and saying, hey, we think we can broadcast the whole weekend of racing in the Tri-Cities. A huge undertaking. And fortunately, they had this glorious 50-foot semi-trailer they had built for Gonzaga basketball, and Tom, the director who was used to working that, picked up the sport very quickly, I thought, Mark, and they told us last year was a learning curve a little bit. This weekend, when we saw Tom at the hotel, said, how's it going? He said, well, setup was approximately half of what it was last year. But I want to say, while we have a minute, to Paul Doogie and Tom and your entire crew, just a total pleasure to work with you guys. I might have done 100 television races now in my career. I've lost track way back when. None have been more fun than working with you guys, and you just do a tremendous job.
And we've had a great time here, great hospitality as well, and we've enjoyed working with everybody as we get ready pretty soon here in the next little bit to go to the consolation race and find out who might get to be the trailer in our final championship heat. We will be back with the consolation race and the final in the 2007 Lamb Weston Columbia Cup. Don't go away. We'll be right back. New boat, actually, Scott. It was not rebuilt from the old boat. It burned so much. They were able to use a little bit of the old boat, but this U-21, driven by Brian Perkins, is pretty much it is a brand new boat, and it looks a lot different than it did the last time we saw it in Seattle.
Their original plan, I think, was to rebuild the boat that burned in Seattle, and the more they got into it, the more they realized, kind of like remodeling your house, sometimes it's easier to start over. They built a fantastic new race boat. It hasn't perhaps run to potential here yet this weekend. They appointed appointed an outstanding young driver, Brian Perkins. We received word from San Diego that the paint job itself was going to be fairly spectacular. That's been the case. Scott Reister has a closer look for us at this beautiful new boat.
The U-21 is hitting the water for the first time this weekend. The brand new $1 million boat replaces the old U-21, which burned to pieces at Seafair last season in Seattle. Unlike the boat, driver Kevin Aylesworth escaped with minor burns, but carries with him very scary memories.
Saw the video last night watching your TV, actually. You guys played it, and it's a tough thing to see. I mean, it's fire is something you never experience in boat racing usually, and it's not something you think about. And to have to go through it and live it, like I said, every time I see it, the hair on the back of my neck goes up.
Aylesworth was lucky and decided to let somebody else race for a while, so Brian Perkins will be in the cockpit.
It's hard to step out of the driver's seat, but like I said, I'm excited because Brian's capable. He's really good at driving, and we're going to have some fun this weekend.
All right, so how do you really feel, Kevin?
We invest $1 million into a piece of equipment, and then we hand it over to a kid, and absolutely I'm nervous. What do you think? It's going to be, I'm going to be on pins and needles.
Aylesworth's racing days may not be behind him just yet.
I'm going to give Brian a hard time. I brought my driver's uniform, and if we get to a point where I can take some pleasure laps, I'm definitely going to go for a ride.
I think he still wants to drive, but I think his kids right now are more important, and he wants to be a dad more than a driver. So those guys are the boss, and we'll see what happens. If they want to make a change, then that's their call. But we'll just have to see what happens.
It was a devastating fire, as you can see. The new boat, though, that grew out of that, like the Phoenix from the ashes, absolutely spectacular. And we expect to see it, perhaps, here in this consolation final. Water conditions right now, absolutely incredible, Mark Allen. I think I could drive a boat in this stuff.
Well, we were told earlier today and last night in the forecast, winds of gusting to 20 to 30 miles an hour. We're not seeing them now, and we're in real good shape to go racing for the provisional heat. Only 2 of our boats on the race course right now, and we're about 2.5 minutes away.
We were told it would be a 4-boat race. We've only seen 2 so far. J. Michael Kelly said, yeah, I'll go with my U-13 Spirit of Detroit. Brian Perkins, the boat we've been talking about, the U-21, the Myers Autotech, Dr. Ken Muscatel, and Superior Racing. We saw him floating at the dock for sure, thought he'd be coming out. Dave Williams is on the race course, so he has appeared. I don't think Greg Hoff and the U-100 ever went into the water, so they probably will not be. They would have been the 5th boat, and we understand there should be 4.
And there's a picture of J. Michael Kelly in the U-13. A few minutes ago, we saw his tailpipe fly off from that incredible little thumb cam that's mounted on the tail of the Spirit of Detroit, driven by J. Michael Kelly as he rounds the west turn and comes down the front straightaway. About 1 minute and 50 seconds to go before the start of our provisional heat. J. Michael Kelly is driven for Harvey Racing and also now for Dave Bardish and the Spirit of Detroit racing team, a veteran of outboard hydroplanes for many, many years, despite the fact that he's not very old.
Now, there is something at stake here. There is a spot in the final heat, well, almost in the final heat. The winner of this is allowed to go out with the boats in the final and trail them down to start-finish. Unlike being a rookie, though, Mark, he is allowed to go racing after that. And we've seen some cases this year where the trailer boat has actually finished in the top 5. So a chance to go racing one more time. It's a quick turnaround for the crew. The winner of this has to go back to the pit area, get the boat back on the trailer, check all the systems, refuel the boat, and get ready for the final fairly quickly. It's really not a very glorious prize because it's a tremendous thrash for the crew, and the first lap or so as the trailer boat, they tell us, is absolutely brutal. There's Ken Muscatel, not where we wanted to see him.
Nope, he looks like he's not going to make it off the dock. Dr. Ken Muscatel, the world's fastest forensic psychologist. We did see Brian Perkins in the U-21 Myers Autotech get away from the pits, and he is now on the race course scoring up with the other 2 boats that will be in our provisional or last chance heat, and we're 30 seconds away from the start. It looks like J. Michael Kelly will be on the inside. Next to him will be David Williams in the Lake Ridge Paving, and they start to kick the rooster tails up. And Brian Perkins, who absolutely nailed the start from the outside in his last preliminary heat, is doing that again, and he's going way wide where he needs to be. The other guys are way inside of him.
You were looking at Greg Hopp, who would have been the 4th boat. His boat did not make it. Here comes Perkins flying high. He's going to be close if he's legal. 3-2. too early. Brian Perkins over the line too early. However, J. Michael Kelly hung back nicely and made a great start on the inside. David Williams then is running second, and Brian Perkins finally a chance to go racing. I think got a little too excited, Mark.
He did. He leads him into the Blue Bridge turn, but was clearly a couple of seconds ahead of the clock. And so your leader on the race course will actually be J. Michael Kelly in that yellow and lime green U13 Spirit of Detroit. He's catching up to Brian as we speak, but we're looking at the leader right now.
Oh, look at this. Look at J. Michael put the pedal down. That boat's fast. We saw this in the Dash for Cash on Friday night when he and Steve David pulled away from the field a couple of times, and you saw him there just put the throttle down and go right by Brian Perkins very, very easily. This boat, usually not one of the top three, but they've had a good season. They are high in national high points. They have run quick, they've run fast, and right now they're on their way to a spot in the final heat where anything can happen. Here comes your leader, J. Michael Kelly.
J. Michael Kelly ends lap 1 with the green flag. 2 more laps to go in our last chance provisional heat. Brian Perkins chasing him, but the boat second place on the course. Just finishing his first lap is David Williams and the Lake Ridge Paving. As we watch on the right side of your screen, J. Michael Kelly going into the Blue Bridge turn, followed by Brian Perkins in the U21 Myers Auto Tech, and off the turn right about now, J. Michael Kelly in the lead.
Watch this boat accelerate up the backstretch now on the Pasco side. It responds beautifully to the throttle. It's a boat that has been redesigned, rebuilt. A lot of help from Doug Ford, one of the great brains in the business, for Dave Bardish and the team, and he has this boat running very, very well aerodynamically. It is very, very smooth up the backstretch, very quick. Get him into the final heat back there where he's been a trailer boat before, Mark Allen, this year, and came out just fine, thank you. So he apparently is anxious to do that again.
Boat running very well, holds it close to the buoy line, comes around the turn at the west end of the race course and down to complete lap number 2. The white flag is flying, indicating 1 more lap for J. Michael Kelly. We're looking at Brian Perkins in the Myers Auto Tech. He's second on the river, but he is actually third because he jumped the gun, and he will take the white flag the next time around. Second place on the race course, you're looking at the Lake Ridge Paving, driven by David Williams, the executive director of the Hydroplane and Race Boat Museum, although I think other folks from the museum have been dealing with the vintage boats this weekend, and David has been concentrating on driving the U48. Halfway up the backstretch, we're looking at your leader, J. Michael Kelly.
A couple of youngsters on the backstretch right now. J. Michael Kelly, an outboard racer, not much inboard experience for him. Brian Perkins, on the other hand, came up through the inboard ranks, racing with the automobile-powered hydroplane classes, but they are great friends. In fact, Jeff Bernard and Brian Perkins, who were both inboard racers, racing here in the Unlimiteds, and they are best friends and have been for many, many years, in their early 20s now. Well, here's the guy who has won a spot in the final heat. He'll be the trailer boat, J. Michael Kelly, winning the consolation 3 quick, smooth laps in Dave Bardish's U13, the Spirit of Detroit. Brian Perkins jumped the gun, but he at least had a chance to do some boat racing. We will hear more from this young man.
He had a good chance to get out and run at speed. He hasn't had much of a chance to do that today or earlier. He's not been in this boat before this race, and so Brian had a chance to run with the pack and run a little bit faster than he's run before. We'll see if he actually goes back around to take another lap. He's not going to do that. He'll go back into the pits. And finishing second in the provisional heat is David Williams in the U48, the Lake Ridge Paving.
So for the U48, the weekend is complete. They will move on to Seafair, and I think they have to be happy with the way things went the first weekend for a brand new team.
We will be back with the final heat, the winner-take-all championship of the 2007 Lamb Weston Columbia Cup. It's coming up, so don't go away. Back at the start-finish line, we're getting ready for the final championship heat of the Lamb Weston 2007 Columbia Cup, and Scott Reister has the winner of the provisional heat, J. Michael Kelly.
That's right, and J. Michael Kelly now gets to race in that final heat. You got to feel good about not ending your day just yet.
No, we're still alive. It's not the way we wanted it to be. You know, we didn't want to go into the finals this way, but you never know what's going to happen in your heats. We went dead in that third heat, and so we had to run the provisional, and got a good start and ran away with it, and so now we're the trailer in the final.
I know, trailer in the final, you got to start about 5 seconds behind the rest of the boats. Is that kind of demoralizing, putting you back that far? I know only one person in recent history has won coming back from that spot.
No, a couple weekends ago I had to do it in Madison. I started 5 seconds late, and by the end of the race, I picked off a few guys, finished third. Basically, my job now is to keep pressure on those guys that are in front of me, and if they make a mistake, I'm going to be right there. So they got a 5-second head start, so we'll see if I can chase them.
And all we know is that he does have a shot because he just won the provisional heat. Mark and Steve, back to you.
We referred briefly to the fact that he had some pretty good experience coming from the trailer boat position, and he did indeed on the first lap in Madison go from trailer to third and stayed there. Nice finish.
You saw Brian Perkins jump the gun by a couple of seconds. There's J. Michael Kelly coming by,
making a good start, and then David Williams. So that was what happened to Brian Perkins. A little bit excited, the young driver, his first time in an unlimited, and he gets it across the line a little too soon. Don't think he was going to beat J. Michael the way the yellow and green boat was running, but he does drop to third place.
And for those of you scoring at home, no points for the provisional heat, so the unofficial results with the U13 Spirit of Detroit in first place, but no points. David Williams second and Brian Perkins in third.
And this is going to be fun to watch, that boat you just saw. The two, there it is right there, the yellow and green. It's kind of a lime yellow and a lemon yellow, I guess, and a lime green, a citrus express they call it. This boat has some speed, folks, and a pretty good boat ride, and a young driver who is not afraid to stick his nose in there and go after the people in front of him. Well, at the start of the final, he's going to have everybody in front of him, and he may just pick off a couple and finish higher than sixth. So that's one of the many stories we'll be watching in the final heat. Talk about critical, the start. Who gets the inside in the final? That's going to be quite a story, Mark.
It is. We've got everybody on the front line who wants to be in lane number one, with the exception maybe of Dave Vilwalk. He used to want to get into lane one every time, but now he's started to work his way out. He's got boat speed on most of the boats, but not everybody.
I don't think he wants to be outside of Jean Theoret or Steve David.
No.
I think he feels that in order to control those two, he has to be on the inside. The lane advantage, just moving into the inside one lane, is tremendous. Several miles per hour difference. Dave qualified 5, 6, 7 miles per hour faster than the rest of the field. If you can get inside of him, you pretty well negate that just because of the size of the turn you go through, and we could have somebody beat him.
Let's go down to Scott Reister. He's going to talk with Dr. Ken Muscatel.
Thanks, guys. I'm here with Ken Muscatel, the U25. Ken, you were just telling me you think this boat's a lot faster than it actually performs out there today.
Actually, we ran real fast. We had laps in the 138 to 142 range in competition. That puts us, really we should have been in the final. We had a couple breaks, a couple mistakes, and then, of course, the igniters didn't go. I would have been able to run with J. Michael, and we would have had a heck of a race. As it was disappointing. This is a hard one to take because we won a race, and the boat's able to do it.
Now, you just mentioned the igniters. That's what prevented you from getting off the docks here in the provisional heat. Tell me a little bit more about the igniters and what kind of problem that is.
Well, think about trying to start an engine without spark plugs. That's what the igniters light the flame, and then that's what they are. They ignite it. No igniters, no flame, no go. You're done.
All right, thanks a lot, Ken. Tough break for the world's fastest forensic psychologist, but we'll see how he does in Seafair next weekend, guys.
Thank you, Scott. We have lots of good water conditions out here, and we're just waiting for 7 boats to show up on the Columbia River for the winner-take-all championship heat of the Lamb Weston 2007 Columbia Cup. Don't go away. This one is one you are going to want to see, no doubt. We'll be back.
Is brought to you by Chiefs RV. Known as the world's fastest forensic psychologist, Ken Muscatel has been driving unlimited race boats since 1990. He was the 1991 URC Rookie of the Year. He has served as the URC Commissioner. Dr. Ken's team also holds the world's 1-mile straightaway speed record at 205.494 miles per hour.
We'll be here with the final in just a little bit. One of the 6 drivers making the final, if you don't count the provisional, Jean Theoret, second place in the points so far this weekend. Do you get a little nervous right before the final? You still got about 20, 30 minutes to go.
Yeah, well, the butterflies start getting in your stomach there. So, yeah, we're really nervous before, but, the beacon plumbing boat's ready to go, and we're anxious to go out there.
I know you've won 2 heats. You finished second in another. how good of a position or how much better can you be in?
Not much better. I think this team so far this year, it's the best accumulation of points we've had in qualifying. So we're quite pleased with where we are right now.
I was talking to your owner before, and he was telling me in the earlier heats, kind of the strategy was just to let Vilwalk win, save it for the final. Now we're here at the final. Do you think that the boat has what it takes to catch Dave, the defending champion?
I don't know. We'll tell you after the final. I think the inside land is going to be very, very important, a good start, and we'll just take what the good Lord's going to give us.
Okay. All right. Thanks a lot, Jean Thierret. We'll see if he can knock off three-time defending champion Dave Vilwalk. Mark and Steve.
Steve David and the Oboy Oberto in the U6 just coming down the front straightaway. We have the U9 Chris Bertram, and J. Michael Kelly will be also in the dash for cash.
We have 1, 2, 3, 4 rooster tails up. J. Michael Kelly coming through the infield, so we will be seeing him. We understand that Brian Perkins in the U21, the brand new Myers Autotech boat, may not make it. David Williams went by in the U48, the Lake Ridge Paving, and as you saw, Jimmy King was scheduled to go, but there he is, Mark, and he is not going anywhere.
No, he took a motor. He was coming through the infield, took a big bounce, a lot of water, and he's looking back at the motor. Not sure exactly whether he's got a gearbox problem back there or not, but we are about 37 seconds away from the start of the dash for cash. And Steve, they're starting to get lined up on the backstretch.
It's going to be a 4-boat race, and they are 4 good ones. This could be fun. Now, a very young driver with very little experience has tried to take the inside. Chris Bertram has put the white boat in about lane 1.5. He may have allowed Steve David room to come up inside of him on the backstretch. J. Michael Kelly is coming up hard behind the field. He'll have to find a lane to race in. It looks like, nope, Steve had to go outside. So it is going to be Bertram on the inside, Steve David and the Oboy Oberto in lane 2. We'll have to see where J. Michael Kelly comes through. He's going to be in lane 3, and David Williams wisely, first time ever in an unlimited hydroplane in competition, is going to take it to the outside.
Here they come down the front straightaway. Steve David leads them down with about, the clock has gone to 0, so we are racing Steve David across the line first, but on the outside, it's David Williams in the Lake Ridge Paving. Right behind him, it's J. Michael Kelly in the Spirit of Detroit, and Chris Bertram on the inside is the boat that's trailing. So Steve David leads him down to the first turn.
Pretty good story there on the outside. It's David Williams in his first start ever in an unlimited hydroplane. Really nailed it, but he was way on the outside, and you can see that out in lane 4. It's a long ways around the race course. Now look at Chris Bertram. This rookie in the white boat did a great job of getting it through the first turn and stays right with Steve David. Now, J. Michael Kelly comes up on the outside, and he's going to put the yellow and green Spirit of Detroit out ahead of Steve David, and that's got to be, Mark, a little bit of a surprise.
Just about half a rooster tail. J. Michael Kelly has the lead, and it's only about a 2-boat length lead. Second place, Steve David and the Oboy Oberto over Chris Bertram in the U9 Conover Insurance. And we've got J. Michael Keller, David Williams has come up on the outside as well. So we've got pretty close to a 4-boat heat right here, dead even as they come off the turn.
This brand new Oboy Oberto is a hot rod. He's beaten everybody but Dave Vilwalk so far this year. And right now, a couple of guys giving him a great race. He is not the leader as they come down to the line, but he may be by the time they get here. It's J. Michael Kelly going by on the outside, putting the yellow and green boat in first place here at the end of lap 1.
Lap 1, we've got the outside boat trailing, but the real outside boat is J. Michael Kelly, and he leads them down to the Blue Bridge turn. But now you've got them deck to deck as they go to the entrance pin, and it's Chris Bertram who comes through halfway through the turn. He's in first place. Steve David now is in second place in the Oboy Oberto, and J. Michael Kelly is in third place on the outside.
Chris Bertram is up from the limited ranks, an outstanding inboard racer leading his class nationally right now in high points, and he really has the old white boat running great. But Steve David in that brand new hot rod, the U6 Oboy Oberto now, is going to stick his nose out ahead. J. Michael Kelly we can't see. He's in the rooster tails, but he's right there. And David Williams trailing the field in the U48. We understand, Mark, we're going to go 4 laps, and if that's the case, we'll have a couple to go after they come down to the line here. Look at Bertram doing a great job of running right on the buoy line. Steve David running right on his hip. And here comes J. Michael Kelly. Still a 3-boat race as we come down to finish another lap.
Lap number 2 just about completed, and it's going to be a dead heat. Chris Bertram on the inside. He doesn't get any closer than that. In the middle, it's Steve David and the Oboy Oberto, and then coming up as they cross the line on the outside is the Spirit of Detroit, and they head for the Blue Bridge turn on the 3rd of 4 times around, and they are still dead even. J. Michael Kelly trailing just a little bit, but Chris Bertram has that Conover Insurance, the U9, out in front as he exits the turn by just about a full rooster tail over Steve David.
Mark, I will make a prediction that the Oboy Oberto and Steve David has a lot more race boat than we've seen so far right here. I think Steve is doing a great job of putting on a show right now. Here he comes, along with J. Michael Kelly, and they are going to drive by Chris Bertram side by side. Look at these guys on the backstretch. Just a beautiful shot as you have three boats in your picture. Steve David, the leader now in the Oh Boy Oberto.
Well, you saw Steve David put the hammer down and walk away from Chris Bertram on the inside. Steve leaves him plenty of room on that western turn. Chris Bertram right on the buoy line, but J. Michael Kelly is right there, about half a rooster tail behind. As they come down to take the white flag, you can see a very close race, and Chris Bertram falls back, but it's J. Michael Kelly less than one rooster tail behind Steve David in the Oh Boy Oberto, and now Kelly goes ahead as they come down to enter the Blue Bridge turn.
I wonder if they told Steve David it was 4 laps, because he looked like he was running his final lap right there when he moved out ahead and took the lead. When he came by us, he slowed down quite a bit, and now Chris Bertram has gone by him and has taken the lead. I don't know if Steve David knows he's still racing. I'm sure his radio man will tell him, you got some, well, everybody's slowing down, Mark. I'm not sure they told the drivers. Well, maybe so. Here they come again. 3 boats side by side. Steve David putting the hammer down one more time. He says, okay, another lap, I can do that. And there goes that beautiful new red, white, green, and gray. They added some gray to the boat. And Steve David says, I won it last lap. If you'd like, I'll step out and win it again.
Leads him into the west turn. Chris Bertram still on the inside, and outside of him is J. Michael Kelly, and he's only about 4 or 5 boat lengths behind. Steve David leaves Chris Bertram a lot of room. Kelly on the outside, but it's going to be Steve David. Checkered flag is flying. We're watching Steve David complete lap number 4 and win the Dash for Cash.
Look at this boat ride. It's just spectacular. It's a brand new boat just completed by the crew, basically, building it in Madison, and they have given Steve David the right he needs to be competitive. Certainly one of the best drivers in the sport currently, and now he has the equipment to run with the leaders. That's exactly what he's been doing. Second place will go to J. Michael Kelly, the youngster out of the southern Seattle area in the Spirit of Detroit, driving for Dave Bartush from the state of Michigan. And Chris Bertram, a very nice job, Mark Allen, driving that plain white U9 for Mike and Lori Jones out of Kent, Washington.
Well, you know, Chris only has 2 races under his belt. He raced for the very first time here last year. He raced in Seattle as well. To get on the inside and duke it out with these guys, I think they probably all had a pretty good idea of where they wanted to be, and give him a little chance to run on the inside, which is not the easiest place. It's the shortest way around the racetrack, but it's not the easiest place to run once you get out into the slop. So
I think we need to tip our hats to Steve David, who probably could have won the first lap by 15 boat lengths, and he really kept it close, and we got some great pictures. So that's what you'll see, folks, as you watch our coverage throughout the weekend. Mark Allen and myself, Steve Montgomery, a great seat up here, which we'll be sharing with you on KNDU's coverage through about this time on Sunday.
We'll see what happens.
Do you think you intimidated people just by the fact that you've won the last 3 in a row? People are saying, Vilwalk. Can you use that to your advantage a little bit?
It's a good thing to talk about. I don't know that has much to do with the race, but we're going to take a swing at it and see what we got, see if we got enough mo to get out front.
Yeah. Some of the guys were saying they're going to kind of way back a little bit and save it all for the final. Have you done any of that? Have you kind of pushed it as hard as it can go so far, or do you still have an extra gear?
I never saved nothing for the final. I'm always trying to win every race that we can. That's, we're trying to get points, and get points to get in the final, and you get points to win the national championship. So we're just pushing all the time.
All right, and we'll see if you can push through in the final and make it 4 in a row here at the Tri-Cities at the Columbia Cup. Guys, back to you.
I'll take you guys out right now. We'll just go slow and make a couple of laps. If you want to hit this starting line up here as fast as you can possibly go. And if you're a split second over, you're going to get a lap penalty. If you're a split second behind, you're pretty much going to get smoked. At basically a football field a second, you can imagine what a bad start does for you if you're 2 seconds behind. Coming into this first turn right here, as soon as the skid fin gets set, you know the boat's hooked up and it's ready to go around the corner. At this point, the driver will come from the down pedal and actually reach over and hit the up pedal, which brings the wing up, gets the whole boat up out of the water. Less drag you have in the water should equate to more speed. At the halfway point, you're about up to speed, which is close to 200 miles an hour. About half track on, she'll blow over at an instant. So here's where you need to be on your toes. The entrance into turn 2. Right here, the guys are not going to be on the up pedal for that wing coming off this turn. Very windy back here. They're going to be concentrating hard on keeping the boat just above, about 3 inches above the water. You don't want it too high. You don't want it too low. Too low, you'll lose. Too high, you'll lose. Either way, it's going to be a bad deal. This is a very nice race course. Long straightaways, pretty consistent turns on both ends. You've got to be in good shape. That's fine. How much time?
Well, the U-17, they have been working all week, all year really, to get this boat race ready. Unfortunately, they kind of knew early on that it was going to be a struggle. Sadly enough, it never made it out on the water. You see the crew still working, obviously, hoping maybe for a couple of pleasure laps. That did not happen. They're starting to look at some things and maybe pack it in. Let's go back and hear what they went through leading up to the Columbia Cup.
Wednesday night, Thursday, it started becoming clear that it wasn't looking good. We were still thrashing. We were still working around the clock. Even up until later on Thursday, we were still hoping that we were gonna have a shot at making it this weekend.
Flip it this way so you can cut it. And since this is a brand new boat, the guys on the U-17 misread dots simply had too much to do in too little time.
There's just a lot of work left to do, and I think it's probably more realistic to expect it, to run early at Seafair.
And the work just goes on and on and on, as you see. Getting a head start on another long week ahead, as these guys have been working day and night, and maybe, just maybe, it'll hit the water in Seafair, and we'll see what the brand new U-17 Red Dot can do. We're now live by the U-17 in the pits. Now back to you.
Is brought to you by Chiefs RV. Dave Bryant brings several successful years in both Superstock and Pro Stock series, including a Superstock championship in 2006. He was the Superstock Rookie of the Year in 1997. His experience in flat-bottom boats will be valuable, as it has been to past champions Mike Allen and Dave Villwalk. Brought to you.
Share with us about potential other sites.
We've done a lot of work this last year in Washington, D.C., the President's Cup Regatta. Tremendous amount of progress has been made. It's a very complicated race site because it involves coordination with the Department of Defense, Homeland Security, actually Defense Intelligence Agency, the city, emergency services. I mean, there's so many moving parts. National Park Service. Put all that together, we can make a race happen in Washington, D.C. Need another year to do it. We're also looking at events back in Nashville and Florida. Right now, the sport's on a high. We just need more events, and it's going to take off. Yeah.
And we certainly hope that it does, Steve Montgomery.
Wouldn't that be fun to go to the nation's capital? Scott Reister is with one of the most popular drivers I know way back in my radio days here in the Tri-Cities. You looked forward for a chance to talk to Steve David, and Scott has him.
Well, you're not the only one. I actually had to pull him away from a couple autograph seekers in the very popular beef jerky machine, Oh Boy, Alberto. It's been about 3 hours since you guys hit the water last. What have you been doing in the downtime?
Well, the team's been getting everything ready. We're getting the right engine in the air and the right gearbox, and just checking everything on the boat to make sure the Alberto boat's ready to go out and run this thing.
There she is, right over there, looking like a shark. Is she swimming like a shark?
Oh, it's running great today. We have run very, very well. We think we got some stuff in that maybe will win this final. We've run second the last 2 races against the Elam. We've been able to beat them for about 2 laps, and they've gone around us. So this time we're going to see if we can make that last for 5 laps.
I know some guys say they kind of want to hold back a little bit and then really go all the way out in the final. Do you have any aces up your sleeve? Have you been holding back at all?
Well, we certainly hope so. Alberto's got some great equipment that they're giving me, and I hope the stuff they put in the final heat is what we need to win.
How much beef jerky have you guys given out this week?
We've given out 11.5 tons of it. In
really?
fact,
Okay.
one of our most important markets. So we appreciate all of the customers buying Alberto beef jerky.
That's a lot of random cow products that have been ingested here at the Columbia Cup. Mark and Steve, back to you.
Well, back here on the start-finish line, we are awaiting the championship final heat. Steve Montgomery?
At least now you can get a fairly straight answer from Steve David.
He was too serious.
I remember standing on the dock working radio here in the Tri-Cities and asking him, now what's your strategy for the final heat? And with a completely straight face, he said, I'm going to take off, circle over Yakima, come in over those mountains, and hit the start-finish line right on time. Everybody's going to wonder, where the heck did he come from? I'll be doing about 340 miles an hour, and I should be able to put him behind me.
Steve,
that was his answer to the question.
Steve David is if nothing else, he is a great personality for this sport. We asked him in Evansville about the new boat, and what he told us was that his DVD player was not working real well. They had to do some adjustments after he went out the first time. So Steve David, one of the real characters in unlimited hydroplane racing.
I heard somebody ask him yesterday, what's your music of choice on the DVD player? And he said, I toned it down a little. I'm going with Harry Chapin and see how that works out. I think we're going to look at some of that fantastic footage that we have collected over the weekend from places we didn't used to be able to put cameras on, in, and around unlimited hydroplanes. You see some tremendous perspective and pretty much the views the driver's seen. We start out here going for a ride with J. Michael Kelly in the U-13 Spirit of Detroit, just pulling away from the dock area there.
There he is. It looks like we were trying to track our jet plane, but this is J. Michael Kelly and the little lipstick camera that is affixed to his horizontal wing.
We should point out that what you saw right there was a big wave of water that comes over the front of the boat as you leave the pit area. They haven't figured out a way to keep that from happening, because there is a moment when the boat is getting up to momentum, the bow is still fairly low, and you're going to get that big wave of water. Now, if you're in San Diego, Mark, that's a problem, because that salt water getting into the engine cowling and the engine creates a huge problem. And when you see our television coverage later of the race in San Diego, you'll see a big snorkel added to the cowling sticking out in front of that wave, hopefully keeping that salt water out of the engine.
It's done a pretty good job. They've learned by default, really, and trial and error how to get the salt water out of that engine or keep it out. J. Michael Kelly around the turn and now heading, looks like he's, we'll see if he's coming up the backstretch.
Running fairly easily. This is the boat ride at perhaps 150 miles per hour or so, and you see that right sponson referencing the water once in a while and putting up a little bit of a splash. It will do that. And now, as we talked about earlier, look up at the front of the boat and you can see one surface moving a little bit. That's the front canard or wing, which he controls with his left foot. In some classes of racing, they call it the joy pedal or the fun pedal, because you can control the height of your boat off the water with that pedal and that front wing. And obviously, high off the water is good to a certain extent. Coming into the Blue Bridge turn, I think, here, Mark.
Absolutely. He's at the apex of the turn now. You can see the boat skids a little bit, but that rooster tail from the skid fin you can see off to the left-hand side of your screen. Now it'll drop away as he straightens out and heads up the backstretch on the Pasco side.
And notice that he's running outside in pretty smooth water. In race water, race competition, you are often in very choppy stuff, so your ride will not be this smooth. We're going to switch rides now and get on board with Jean Thioret in the U-37, Miss Beacon Plumbing.
We're going to watch his hands on the steering wheel in the lower right side of your screen as he goes around the turn. We'll see him crank that steering wheel almost halfway around, almost an entire half turn in order to get that boat around the turn.
And they have it geared that way, Mark, so that if you're making small movements from the boat bouncing, you won't be turning the rudder a lot in the back end. They want it to be a fairly big turn to get the rudder to turn.
Now he's coming to the Blue Bridge turn. We'll watch that front canard as he goes by the yellow buoy, brings it down, gets a little bit of air into the boat. As Mike Allen was explaining earlier in the piece we saw of him going up around the pleasure boat, you want to get that air under the boat a little bit as you go through the turn, get the boat up off the water so it doesn't have so much drag, and then as you get up the straightaway, you'll level it out.
This is incredibly smooth water that he's running on right here. You see he still has a little bit of downwing, and the trailing edge is lifting the front of the boat. Now he's getting up into the end of the race course where Dave Villwock went over last year. He just went through that area, and you saw him pedal it down a little bit to keep the nose down, and hopefully that's what we'll do here in the final heat. Keep the boats on the water, please.
Leading, too.
50,000 fans here this weekend, I'm told. The diehard fans, well, they bought pit passes, and the diehard of the diehards, well, they might wander over to the team, say hello, and actually see some toys for sale. The very popular boats selling their own brand of toys. I'm here at Dave Villwock's U1 or U16 Miss Elam Plus, joined by Vic Nelawake, trying to move some of this product. Vic, tell me a little bit about what you got here in the Villwock toy store.
Well, we've got some things that are real popular with the kids. Over here we have one of our inflatable boats. We also have these Matchbox type toys that the small kids like, and then we also have these bathtub or pool boats. And then for the older kids, we have some remote control boats in addition to our various hats and t-shirts and
So that's like a remote control car, but you put that in the water and you can actually drive it around?
Oh, absolutely. It'll go 35 miles an hour and throw up a rooster tail, and it's like our real big version, but it's
a lot safer, huh?
A lot of fun, yeah.
If you flip that bad boy, you're not in big trouble, except you might be out, what, $30 or $50?
Well, a little bit more than that. Those run about $300.
Oh, wow, okay. What about this guy right here?
We sell these for $10. This is probably our most popular item.
And you can turn that on and just watch it go?
With a couple of batteries, put it in your swimming pool, and you have a ball.
Now, you were telling me about another present you gave your aunt, was it, that one time? I know if these toys aren't for you, but you are a Hydro fan, what were you telling me earlier?
Well, last year after the race here, I bought one of the KNDU DVDs, and I gave it to her as a Christmas present. It was the first time last year that she had been to the Gold Cup in Detroit, where I'm from, and she thoroughly enjoys it, and I'm looking forward to this year's version.
All right, we could use some more die-hard fans like Vic, and not just a fan, but a crew chief yourself.
Well, no,
crew member, I should say that, but maybe one day, right?
Yeah, maybe, hopefully.